As I was waiting for Season 1, I started a tournament level game, not to risk falling off the Champions League. I started the game by splitting the skeletons at the back. My opponent set up a defensive furnace. My Ice Spirit's purpose was to fully absorb the damage of the Fire Spirits and cycle to my Fireball. Even though I still decided not to use my Fireball, not to get into a negative elixir trade, when suddenly he placed the Electro Wizard, and there I saw an opportunity of fireballing both Furnace, Electro Wizard and the tower. Before he got to 10 elixir, he placed a Royal Giant to protect his Electro Wizard. I should have logged that, but I was focused on the Royal Giant. This was going to be a tough match, because his deck was a direct counter to mine. When I saw him placed the baby dragon at the back, I realized that his Royal Giant is out of cycle, so I placed an Xbow at the bridge. And unfortunately, his defense destroyed my Xbow, and I had to deal with the counter push. To counter the Mega Minion, I placed an Ice Golem. Because the deck he was using was very popular, I assumed that he had the Lightning. Now, my plan was to bait out the Royal Giant and then cycle back to my Xbow quicker than he could be able to cycle to his Royal Giant. And I did. I placed the Xbow on the opposite lane, but unfortunately it connected to the furnace and it didn't have time to connect to the tower, and then he was able to cycle back to his Royal Giant. Because the Electro Wizard was affected by the rage, I thought that he was going to connect to the tower first, and then my Ice Spirit would be able to freeze him, but I was mistaken. After that, I made a mistake, and I placed the Xbow in the middle of the arena. Now my opponent could lightning both the tower and my Xbow for a positive elixir trade, but luckily for me, he missed it. I didn't know what to place, so I just cycled my log. After that, I decided that my only hope to win is to connect the Xbow, and to accomplish that goal, I needed to outcycle the Royal Giant. Because he was pressuring too much, I didn't have time to place the Xbow before he was able to cycle to his Royal Giant, so I decided to repeat the same pattern again. The right side was getting crowded, so I just fireballed it. Now he surprised me by placing the Royal Giant offensively on the left side, and even though my plan was to connect the Xbow to the tower instead of using it defensively, I still put it there, hoping it gets a positive elixir trade. And unfortunately the Tesla that I misplaced by one tile didn't stop the baby dragon, and I was forced to fireball it not to let him put my tower into lightning range. I had to pressure not to let him build up elixir for a Royal Giant push. He spent 6 elixir on a lightning, making my tower 1 lightning away from death. His Royal Giant was out of cycle. It was now or never when I had to connect the Xbow to the tower. When it finally did, I had to back it up with everything I could. Now every second of the Xbow's life was priceless. After the Xbow died, the tower was 1 fireball away from the victory. Now we were just placing everything we could to deal 1 hit to the tower. It was a race of my ice golem and his baby dragon. Who was going to make that first to the tower?
Bruh.
Now the first thing I thought was to say, "Nerf the Royal Giant!" But instead I decided to analyze why I lost. It is never easy to beat the Royal Giant deck with the Xbow deck. But in this game I was 58 HP away from the victory, so I thought that thinking about what I did wrong could make me improve with the Xbow cycle, with which I don't play very often. It is a high skill deck. The average cost of elixir is 2.9, which means that I really have to place troops really quickly in double elixir, and each mistake can cost me a lot of damage. Or elixir. However, there were more mistakes that I made during that match, and one of them was overcommitting on defense. I usually try not to do it very often, but I was thinking that because I have a cheap Xbow cycle, I can't let any damage touch my tower, and that mentality led my offensive Xbows to not connect to the tower most of the times, and that made me lose a lot of elixir, which as a result made me lose much more HP on defense that I preserved by overcommitting on defense before. Another mistake that I made, probably resulted by the lack of confidence with this deck, was panicking at the end. I try not to do it very often, but this time, because his tower was low, my tower was low, and he had the lightning in his hand, it all made me panic, place everything I could just to take the tower, not calculate the cycle, and it's at the end resulted in me not seeing the Royal Giant at all. And the last mistake that I did, but my enemy didn't exploit, luckily for me, was exposing my defensive Xbow to the lightning. And there is a spot called the anti-lightning spot that can prevent your enemy's lightning from touching both the defensive Xbow and the tower that they are attacking. The only problem was this matchup, because I misplaced my Tesla in order to kill the Electro Wizard, and then I needed something to distract the Royal Giant, and the anti-lightning position is too far away to do it. But it still isn't a situation without a solution, because there exists another anti-lightning spot, but the one that is able to distract the Royal Giant. The reason for why I don't really like this spot is that the enemy can place any troop on his side of the arena near the Xbow, and it will be able to shoot it. Now I think that's all for the mistakes I was making, but there were still occasions that I missed. For example, pre-shooting a fireball. And well, for that I can't really advise anything, because every matchup is different, but I guess it's all caused by my lack of confidence with this deck. And that is a tip for all of you. I give you tips for the Xbow cycle deck, but the biggest tip I can give you right now is to practice with the decks that you are using. And if you lose a match, go to the replay mode and analyze why you have lost that match. Thank you for watching, and see you in Season 1.